A 7-foot customer wants me to put together a utility iron for him. This one. So let's get started. Welcome back to the McGolf shop. And I took a weekend off and played at a lefties tournament and came back, and again we had a bunch of work. I've already sent out 2 sets of clubs for a father and a daughter from West Virginia, who the father happens to be the president of the West Virginia section of the PGA. Sent him a driver and a 3-wood. Daughter got a 3-wood and a hybrid, both from Callaway, which leads me into the next piece. I got a email from a 7-footer, and his name is Jim, so it can't be all bad. And he wants me to make this into something that he can use. Now, we've had some discussions. What we're doing here is about second or third best in the way of fitting. You know, obviously doing a dynamic fit in my room back here, that would be number one, because now you get to see what they're hitting, how they're hitting on the machines you're used to, and the customer leaves with confidence. I know what's going on, and we can make a good build. Second might be some static information. Third is somebody over the phone or in the email says, I'm this guy, I swing like this, and can you make me something? Which is kind of how this started. However, through a few other questions, I got a little bit better idea. So, you know, the biggest thing here is the fella is 7 foot tall. Now, for most of you guys, you know, you go, oh, I'm really tall, I need longer clubs. Maybe, all right? Right around 6'3"-ish is about where you need to consider start getting longer clubs. Why is that? Well, because as you get taller, your arms get longer. So unless you're a very, very tall guy that stands very tall to address and not your normal address, you may not need extraordinarily long clubs, okay? So you got it. That's the reason why you do the dynamic test, because tall guys normally have longer arms, and the height versus arm ratio really doesn't start getting out of whack until around 6'3". Then you got to take into account the address position. Now normally these guys at 6'3", 6'4" are extraordinarily bent over because they haven't gotten any longer clubs, and which may only be a ½ inch long, might be an inch long, whatever. It just depends on their physical makeup. Are they able to take a regular stance to the ball because they're so tall? They might have very, very long legs and a shorter body, or even vice versa. So you got to really take a lot of that. When height starts getting into play, you really got to take the dynamic testing on this. Now, I did a guy that was 7 foot tall. He was an NBA player, and once we got him into the standard posture, we ended up making a 40-inch 5-iron, which is 2 inches over standard. So, and that was just to get him in the normal. So what we're doing today is we're making this 18-degree utility iron. It's the Apex. There you go, the Apex. And we're going to make it 42 inches. So it's going to be quite the treat. Now, the real trial with doing really long clubs is getting the flex right at the very beginning, because there's not a lot of shaft to work with. Now, what you could do is you could get the frequency and then extend it, but then that just takes away from the quality of the club for the guy. So now what do you have to do? Well, sometimes you have to get the next stiffer club and move up and work your way down from there. Sometimes. In this particular instance, what I've done is we're going to take a look at this head. We're not done with it. And we're going to try and put this, I got an Acra M4, which is stiff, 80-gram shaft. All right. Because the other part is when you start making these things long, they start becoming really heavy, and then that's not fair to those guys either. Those guys being the tall guys. So you really want to watch the weight. Now what happens is you end up going to lighter clubs like this gentleman did for this, Another said he had some KBS Tour 90s put into some irons, and he's a very aggressive swinger. Well, if you guys know anything about Tour 90s, they're great lightweight clubs, but they are totally not for aggressive swinging. They are very lightweight in the butt, so they can get a higher launch angle. Now, they have what's called a Tour 105, just slightly heavier, but it's more of the Tour design. Maybe something like that would be better, and it still wouldn't feel like a sledgehammer. Okay, so first things first, we're going to get into this build. Now, what I get here is, if you look at this thing, see all that muck right here? We're going to clean that up. And then there's some black, and I'm not sure if that's from a melted ferrule or if that's some Sharpie or whatever. So I got to take care of that. And then there's some junk on the inside. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of acetone and gently rub it there, try and get rid of it there. And then I'm going to drill the inside of this out so I get the bottom part of it out. So give me a minute and I'll be right back, and then we'll see what the end result was. All right, back at it. Now, you may have seen some of the stuff in the back. We got rid of the black, and it turns out that was a bunch of ferrule stuff. And the best way to just get rid of it is with a wavy wheel. And the wavy wheel is it's a nylon wheel that I have these plates on it that makes it do this when it rotates like that. And it allows you to take off some of the stuff without taking off all the coating, because if you look, this thing is actually painted to silver. Okay, that's not a brush color, and I was able to get it all off of there. I was able to get all the junk off of the club with all the. Anytime you have any adhesives, you can take it off typically with acetone, and you only really need just a little bitty piece of it. Just get it nice and damp. And normally it wipes everything off. Now, the last bit was, which was kind of surprising, was the hosel. Now, I thought maybe the hosel might be taper tipped, and it was. And so I reamed it out. And why did I do that? Because I like parallel better than I like taper. Because taper allows me a little bit more modification than taper tip. You just shove it in, boom, you're done. Taper tip, and you get what you get whether you like it or not. Parallel, if I have the ability to tip, I can make it more stiff if I need to and if I can. So I reamed it out, and there was a whole bunch of junk at the bottom, and that's the big thing. If you get stuff with a whole bunch of junk on the bottom and you just go to put it in there, chances are this thing's not going to play like it was designed, meaning that it might kick a little bit higher, and you have a better aptitude or better chance, because if it needs to go in the hosel about that deep. And if it only goes in the hosel that deep, you can see the difference, and all of a sudden it makes it weak. And it can snap that thing clean off, especially if you hit one really close to the inside. So there's a proper way of putting these things together. So we got her cleaned up. We're going to check this out. We'll put them together. We'll do the flow and the spine, the whole 9 yards, and we'll see what we can find out. So let me move you over. Okay, so now what we're going to do is, this shaft tends to come with spine marks on it already, and I've been using them for quite some time, and so I trust them. And because I'll do a final check anyway when it's all said and done. So we get it inserted, and as it turns out, I have 1 inch to work with. So Jim, we can make it a little stiffer. We'll see what it is now first. And Jim was telling me he hits a 6-iron right around 200 yards. And that's not with one of those jacked up, lofted, clubs that'll help you hit longer. This is with players types clubs. So that means he's got a healthy swing speed. And you know what? Look at here. I see where I'm cockeyed. There. Okay, so let's finish this off. So Jim, it looks like we're going to be in really good shape because I wanted him basically in the 6.0 to 6.5 range. That way he wouldn't be hooking it off the planet nor slicing it, especially if he's aggressive. And this thing is perfect on 6.5, so we're going to leave it at that. So now we're going to check and make sure it's truly flowing. And you guys remember this is my little rig that I've got here. If you look up flow clamp on my library, you'll see it, and it shows you how I made it. Okay, so we're good with that. Make my marks. And then we'll go and we'll glue it. Now I'm just going to put on a regular collared ferrule because that's what it takes. And we're going to put it in the glue, and then tomorrow we'll do some of the finishing. So we'll see you tomorrow. Okay, it's been 24 hours and we now have a whole club. Well, 3/4 of a club so far, or 2/3 of a club. In some cases what happens is when you do this gluing and you do the taping, you get some of that overbleed right there. So again, like you've seen in other ones, and if you want to learn how to turn a ferrule, it's in another one of the one of my videos, and I'll put it in the show notes. However, we're going to put this on there, and that'll carve that part off, and we're going to shape it. So you should be able to see it from back there. If not, I'll move you up. In fact, I think I will. There we go. Okay, as you can see, it took it off on the back end right there. And it'll get cleaned up when I polish it some more. There's a slight opening there, and I'm not real happy with that. But it's really, really solid. So I'm going to try and clean it up a little bit more and see what happens with it. So I'm going to push you back because we're going to use this guy here in a second and to finish this up. That cleaned up pretty good. Alright, so now we're going to go and we're going to shine it. Back and forth, and voila, done. You know, I really don't like that, so I'm going to take it apart and I'm going to put it back together. Sorry, Jim, it's going to be another day, but if you look, I don't know if you can see it or not. There's a gap. See how I can stick my fingernail in there? It doesn't right there, but it does in the front. And that just bothers the living crap out of me. So, apart it comes. So, you just saw me take it apart. Well, you didn't see me take it apart because it was in the whole thing. So, I'm going to have to take this apart. So, we're going to heat this and get rid of it again. Doggone it. Yep. We're going to reverse it, dude. So, you saw a little bit earlier when I said, oh my God, we got to change all that. Well, I did it. Okay, I went and took it off, glued it up, put it in my easy bake oven, and now we got it looking better than it was before. And that's what I wanted. All right, nothing changed. I checked the flex, checked the flow, did all that stuff. Now we're back to where we were. So let's put a grip on it. All right, 42 inch utility iron. All right, normally you only see this 42 inches like a 5 wood. So we know we're making it for a pretty big guy. So look at this. Guys used to doing a jumbo grip and putting a couple rolls of tape underneath of it. Well, that's all great and dandy. However, I mentioned that with the last 7-footer I did in there, that we even had a bigger grip, and he's like, whoa, okay. And what we're going to put in there is the Jumbo Max. All right, Jumbo Max, and this is the medium. Okay, and the Jumbo Max is was one that was made, a couple years ago, and they had it was basically bigger grip, looser pressure, faster swings. And I don't think it was really taken that way, but it was originally just the tour style gripping, and they had big sizes. Well, in this neck of the woods where I'm at, we have some pretty big guys and the big hands, and these were fitting just like regular grips, so it was working out. Well, then this year Bryson DeChambeau shows up, right? Everybody, and he's the one that spurs on the single length iron, and he's big single plane, and he uses these grips. And with that, they actually did something that they've needed to do for a while, and they had a different style, okay? Where the other one was more of a tour wrap, this one's more of a velvet on the top and a little bit of a texture underneath. And it has a significantly better feel. Now they come in other colors now too. They got a red, white, and blue, I believe, and they have this black and a gray and a green, which is very cool. So if you're looking for a bigger, and a softer and grippier grip, give these guys a look at, because they really are a pretty nice little grip. So we're gonna go put that on, and then we'll talk about the specs of a longer club. So I'm gonna turn you here a little bit. So now let's do a couple specs. Okay, Jim, this is going to be something different that you've probably never heard of before. I made this club, it's at least 2 inches longer, so for those of you guys that are hung up on swing weight, this thing ought to be massively heavy, something in the F's, right? Well, here's where the whole trick of tricking swing weight comes into play. This grip is heavy, it's big, and it's heavy. So it's basically tricking the teeter-totter, okay? And what this came out to being, instead of in the E's, it was actually a C8. All right, normally I was shooting for about a D0, so that's pretty close. So when you look at it, that's where it's balancing. All right, there's the head, or the grip, and there's the head. So that's where it's balancing. All right, so it's a good spot. And what this does is this puts a lot of weight in the hands of the golfer, and if you're aggressive, like Jim says he is, then this thing should work pretty good. You're going to get some good air time, Jim, and the thing is right in the middle of the range that we wanted. So all in all, I think you got a pretty good club. So I'm going to just put a little bit of wax on it, and we're going to be done. So in review, we put the Jumbo Max grip, we just talked about that, and then we're using the Acra I-Series hybrid. Now if you end up liking this, Jim, in the I-Series, and you have fairways and you have drivers, Acra is one unique company that does a family of shafts. And what I mean by is dynamically it matches. So we're going to work backwards in this case. Normally we fit the driver and go back, but if this really works, then if you wanted a fairway wood, then we can marry it up to this and it would dynamically match your swing. Same thing for the driver. Just a little bit lighter, a little bit lighter. That's how that works. And you should be in pretty good shape. They also, for those guys who are not in the gray tone, they also have colors. So if you like purple, blue, green, whatever, you can get them in that color. It just takes a little bit longer. Also, let's say you wanted to personalize it and you wanted to, you're getting it as a present, they can say, you know, engineered for Jim by Acra, happy birthday Jim, Jim is the greatest, whatever it is that you think, or booyah, whatever you want to put on there. And you can do that. That's again unique with this company, that they can make that happen. Of course, all of it's at a different cost, but it's making it your, that's the whole idea of a custom club, is making it yours. And then obviously the last bit was, it is a very, very popular driving iron from Callaway's Apex UT. So If you like what you saw, hit the like button if you would. And if you want to learn more, because we are going to do some more, I've got what am I using to make these videos with. I've also made some contact with some folks. And we should see some pretty good content coming here in the next week or two. So subscribe, and that way you can see it's coming. And again, like always, let's see your scores go low. So if you want to personalize it, let's say you're getting a present from the really 1 day and 1 second into it. Nice. Again, like anything else, the right length of tape. You don't want any wrinkles in it, because in the smaller grips you will feel that. Larger grips, not so much. But you want it smooth, because that's, as a practice, that's what you want. Get enough solvent in there. You can never have too much. If you're going to use air, that's good. You always want to just, normally you guys are dipping the tips in the solvent to get it going. Some do, some don't. Go until you feel it seating. Check your alignment initially in the holder. Seat it. Check it one more time. Looks like it's down the middle. And then I like wiping it down just to kind of get any extra crud I might have on it. And then a little heat to kind of evaporate what I put on there. And it puts a little heat in there in the grip, because it's pretty thick. And it's pretty thick, and so it'll help evaporate on the inside. Well, I got that part to looking better. This is starting to be problematic, so now I got to go to some machinery instead of just acetone.